And fear always loses in that dynamic because fear steers the mind towards survivalism and getting to look at the world from just a fucking physical, animalistic perspective. It's survival instincts and mechanisms that steer your brain to looking and analyzing at the world from the worst case scenarios and how to prevent that and how to preserve. In essence, that is a protection mechanism when looked at through a neutral lens. It's like a ping on a sonar, but it becomes irradiated with these unfathomably complex ideals and the mimetic coding of our minds and the imageries that get us to demonize and villainize and look at the world from a very fucking brutal and behaviorally psychotic lens at times. Looking at the world with an open mind and an open heart from the perspective of experiencing it directly in the present and seeing just how fundamentally neutral a majority of life is when it's devoid of every influence going on around you gets you to see it's just an open sandbox. The only force acting and willing upon anything is just life moving in the direction of keeping its course and progressing in the direction of producing more life and avoiding entropy. And maybe that's where the entropic force gains and garners its power. It's selling your soul to the idea that life must go on continuously at any and all costs and any means necessary, but only directed in the circumstance of which you can control. But nature is the thing steering everything when it comes to human behavior and how we attempt to control our lives. Seeing through it, the capacity and the ability of consciousness to see that this biological spacesuit that is the human being, no matter what we do, decays and dies like everything on this planet does, and coming to terms with that circumstantially and accepting that suddenly alleviates and relieves a lot of the stress of those instincts that have such a grip and a stranglehold on the psyche. They're still there, but they act as the neutral line of defense that they are for detecting and alerting the body and the nervous system to immediate threats and dangers. Our entire world attempts to drill into your mind that the world is continuously an immediate threat and danger, even when you're not in danger. So it's no wonder why people feel psychologically fucking stressed beyond a breaking point to where they cannot handle reality. The world is constructed to make you believe in an illusion the world is basically hell. And fundamentally, a lot of the world is turning to hell because people have been convinced of such a thing. And they believe there is no justification for doing any good in a world that quintessentially is falling to hell. So they doubly feed into this double death drive of the subconscious mind, overwhelming and overtaking your ability to come to terms with how life is and what life is. And with all the personification of death and the fucking feeding and stoking of fear and the flames of ideas like eternal damnation and hellfire and brimstone and fucking boogeymen lurking around every corner, you treat a world that is fundamentally and predominantly neutral to this species like a hostile environment. If this world was so fucking dangerous, why is the human being the most propagated species on this planet that has a level and degree of success with propagating its species enough to build civilizations in the first place? Why would it produce a species in the first place that can produce that result? That mirrors and reflects through nature a level and degree of intelligent design and through free will can fucking extrapolate and elaborate its own design and play it out in the sandbox of life in whatever fucking way possible. Well, then we have to admit a scary truth. A truth that we can't fucking fathom because it's not one found in the mind. The experience of being human is more or less the experience of being a consciousness existing in a body that's drives and tendencies are steered fundamentally by nature. And there are forces trying to corral and cattle pen it into going against that nature. But for what purpose? Not a positive, but to essentially weaponize it against itself. And by weaponizing it against itself, it basically zero sum games what it means to be human. And from that, you get a malleable, controllable, influenceable being that is like a trained dog or a trained caged animal. A being with a kind of totality of freedom not confined to the conditions and circumstance doesn't necessarily just become some kind of psychopathic destructive influence in the world. A being with the liberty to see the world what it is and move through it in that way is not a force of destruction, but a source of potential and creation. It's what we do with that and what we channel that into that matters. When you were a kid, you were taught to believe in dreams. You were taught to follow your passions. Why did that get segmented and segregated off as being unrealistic and impractical? Because it did not serve the fucking way and the criterion of how the apparatus and the mechanisms of the world operate. It wasn't that it was unrealistic. It wasn't that it was unpractical. You were planning fucking steps and milestones ahead into a future that other people could not perceive and that you had no direct perception of how it would change in a world where the dynamic is set by everyone having that same capacity. How much that would play into you. How much you play just as much an act on it. You were always wholly and totally and fundamentally free. The bars of the prison cell are made by your own acceptance and your compliance with what you categorize as your life. But your life is just a thought. Your life is just an idea. Your life is a concept that can be changed at any given moment, and it's whether or not you think it's worthwhile to choose to do with what that life, what you think is optimal for it. What you're going to find fundamentally is everything you're chasing and pursuing out of life is just for what fundamentally comes from being in the neutral state of life and living and existing in the first place. A state of peace, a state of neutrality, and at the same time, from that, an overwhelming sense of joy and love for your humanity and the capacity that your humanity holds. When you were a kid, you had an unfathomable imagination that stretched to realms and territories that were like untapped by human influence, that made you look at everything with an inspiring sense of awe and wonder. Stare up in the night sky for a prolonged period of time and explore just how unfathomable the depth of all this world is. Because you're just on one little rock with all the things going on it, with the ants we are crawling on it. You think that's all that's going on in this universe and you're the center of it all? You're a big portion and component of the human experience? But I'd be fucked to say we're the only thing going on. Now, it's not to put a claim on extraterrestrial life or whatever. I'm getting into that realm and territory, but fuck. It's a big ass universe. How much grandiosity does one species have or need to put itself at the center of all that and claim itself a master of the universe? You have to be a pretty big fucking clown to think that, in my opinion. Maybe that's a problem. We take a game that isn't supposed to be serious whatsoever very fucking seriously and say we have a lot of stake and claim in a game that we know is fundamentally, fleeting. It's a temporary affair. It's a beautiful one, but a temporary one. Getting stressed about the things going on in the world just keeps you from really doing anything to change a circumstance of doing with your life something that improves upon it, however that might be. Not to go out and change the fucking world and be Superman, goddammit. Write a book, read a book. Make music. Make love. Go to a fucking park once in a while. Honestly, the most absurd and best advice that I can give you is live your life as if it doesn't fucking matter anymore, because what doesn't matter if we're all following the same continuum of events, a death spiral us in the direction of following what essentially is the ideology of these entropic death cults that influence the world. Call them for what they fucking are. And destroy civilizations and fucking jeopardize the lives of your fellow human beings living on the planet, people no different than you. What, just because you can't see eye to eye or you feel like you need to own everything? You fucking deranged toddler ass, juvenile, monkey king looking motherfuckers. Sit on it and spin. You're no more or less fucking fundamentally important than any of the moving portions and components in the apparatus you built out of human labor and human endeavor. And honestly, majority of the people living and existing and surviving in the system that you've created could fucking bop you one at any given day. You're not powerful because you can pay off people and because you have armadas of people with fucking weapons. They're only participating because you're attempting to persuade what essentially is bribery through force that they're going to have a piece of that pie worth fucking having after, whatever it is you're attempting to get to is said and done. But you may the fucking, very weird circumstance of how that's, fundamentally believable that it's anything worth pursuing when quintessentially what's happening with these people is they're threatening to fucking blow up the goddamn planet if their plans don't come to fruition. So you don't really make any promises that can be trusted or can be kept. When that's your fucking ultimatum of if you fail, really, is it? What's it worth following what essentially is people, devoted to a fucking suicide pact with the angel of death itself, or their idea of thereof? I think even these people give death and devil the bad fucking name. At least the others have a more, poetic reason as to why they came into fruition as the fucking beings that they are, written in the allegories that they are. These people are just lewd, crude, disgusting, fucking degenerate human beings with not a care for any living organism on the planet other than what serves and slakes and satiates their needs. They're drooling, sniveling fucking worms. You're gonna take fucking orders from a worm? Be my guest. The world's not getting any better until people, change or decide not to go with the status quo. And if that point comes, it'll be what side of history do you want to stand on? The one that has to manufacture and convince itself through a lifetime that they were the fucking good guys? In my opinion, there aren't any good guys on this planet anymore. There's no hero's journey to be taken in a world that does not fucking permit any growth and evolution, warranting any merit or value thereof of human life or the preservation of human life. If you create a manufactorum out of human effort and endeavor that basically treats them as expendable and disposable, well, what the fuck are we here for then? To serve the whims and fancies of people that just entropically despise and hate us and honestly want us dead because we take up too much room in a planet that provides all the resources for all us to, survive. But they need more than that. You honestly need more than what the world produces for you. I tell anybody with that level of grandiosity to suck on the fattest of dicks. Being so fucking disgusting and nasty and hostile to the world that even permitted them to live and exist in the first place, giving, even death personified a bad rap, or even death looks more hospitable than what these people are fucking offering in a life of indentured servitude. Yeah, go on being the lackeys and the goons of those people. You're the one getting fucked over. Have fun reflecting on all the fucking thoughts and the things that they make you do because you were just following orders in the lifetime that you were given and having to live with that. Tell me it was all worth it to get whatever, finite materialistic things that could sustain you for a lifetime. It all goes. And at the rate that they're fucking burning through all the elements and material components that exist on this planet because their greed is insatiable, it's gonna go quicker than you think. A big ball of fucking fire. If nobody chooses to draw the line somewhere and say, we're not doing this shit. I think the people are the first to draw the line when they decide we're not going along with this stupid fucking game because it's a suicide mission. And as somebody who's really familiar with that Roman territory, I can tell you when somebody's talking out of their ass and making up a bunch of fucking lies and trying to persuade you to go get yourself fucking killed and kill other people in the process. Why? Because that's a person that has no fucking hope. As a person that does not care what happens, not to a degree where they don't care where life takes them and they're fun and fancy free, but they're obviously and totally and wholly confined to a circumstance of just being completely insatiable. They're a hungry ghost. There's nothing this world can provide that they can shovel in their mouths and their pockets that isn't going to decay and turn into ash. Nothing that can satiate them. They're never going to have an ounce or shred of gratitude for what the world provides. They just feed parasitically off it. So fuck these people. Don't listen to a goddamn thing anybody's saying in the world at this point that drags you more into the condition and circumstance of looking at this world from a nihilistic lens and perspective, because it's just a fucking hollow hole in the ground. And the reality is, it's only 6 feet deep. Jump high enough and grab onto the fucking corner and pull yourself up, and you'll realize you were just spending a lot of time sitting around and doing nothing. And always there was a chance, the chance and the case and the circumstance that you could leap and crawl your way out of that hole back into the light. The door has always been open. Coffin lid is not slammed shut yet.